All right, everyone. So, welcome to our session on becoming a nonprofit board fellowship partner today. You're going to learn a little bit more about the program and what that looks like and how to apply. So, to get us started here, my name is Annalise Fowler. I'm a CNP certified nonprofit professional. So, my educational and professional background is largely in the nonprofit and education sectors, and I'm the senior program coordinator for our nonprofit board fellowship. You'll also see on this slide here, Haley Billy. She is also part of the nonprofit board fellowship team, but she's actually on maternity leave with her first child right now. So we're very excited for her. And she will be returning by the time many of you might be our nonprofit partners in the fall. So very exciting. We wanted to make sure you knew her face too. So to get us started today, I wanted to kind of reflect and frame our conversation today on what your board's biggest challenges are. What do they do well? And whether you're a staff member or a board member, you can either reflect on this by yourself, I'll give us a moment, or put it in the chat if you're feeling bold. So go ahead and think on the biggest challenges and also what your board does well. I know a big challenge that we're seeing these days is board recruitment. I hear that a lot from our partners. I give it a few more seconds if anyone wants to share. That's a great one, Angie. Going from that like working board to the more governing board, especially, or trying to implement best practices and things like that. That's a very common one I see as well. Thanks for sharing. All right, well, keeping all of that in mind, maybe use that as a framework for what we're going to discuss today and what you learn about the program. So our content today will be around 20 to 30 minutes. You're welcome to stay around for questions at the end. I will be on the call. And we are recording this main portion right now, just so you know, but I will stop the recording during questions so that you feel comfortable asking anything that you would like to. And then I encourage you for that reason to write down your questions for the question and answer at the end. Sound good? All right, let's get into it. So you may have seen this logo on a lot of our materials, Michigan Ross Business Plus Impact. So what is Business Plus Impact? We are a university-wide initiative at Michigan Ross, and we are dedicated to serving the greater good through business, through nonprofits, and even government. So we really like to create these efforts and also organize and publicize these efforts, really highlighting business and nonprofit sector as a force for social impact. So that's why the Nonprofit Board Fellowship is housed under our initiative, as well as some of the other programs we offer for our students, like social entrepreneurship programs, internship support, and so many other things. So some of our program goals then, as you might be able to tell from sort of our mission as Business Plus Impact and as the Nonprofit Board Fellowship, is to advance your missions. You all are doing such amazing work already in our communities, and we really just want to uplift that through this fellowship. We also want to prepare the next generation of social impact leaders. So our students are able to, then go out into the world and amplify the impact that they learn here in this program. But we're also not just talking about social impact leaders in terms of our students. We're of course talking about all of you as board members and staff as well. And with that, we really want to offer educational opportunities for everyone participating in this fellowship and space to build coalitions in our community. We really see ourselves as, that facilitation element to bring all these people together and all these amazing and wonderful programs and organizations. So overall, really, our goal is to build meaningful partnerships, to address some common challenges in the nonprofit sector, and share the innovative practices that you all are coming up with amongst each other and with our students. So leading into that, what actually is the Nonprofit Board Fellowship? What does it look like? So I'll give a brief overview and then we'll dive into much more detail. So 2 graduate students from U of M would be matched to your board for a year. They would participate in your board meetings, your committee meetings, and they would take on some sort of wish list project with your board. So throughout that project in their board service, the student would also be matched with a designated board member who kind of provides a little bit of extra support to them. They would meet with them outside of board meetings occasionally to guide them along through this experience. And then we also, from our staff side, provide you all, students and nonprofits, with resources, project support, one-on-one guidance, anything that we can offer, we're here for. And then we also invite you all, students and nonprofits, to our workshop series throughout the year, networking and community building events, and more. So more specifically, the fellows are from a variety of backgrounds. So they very much, for the most part, have strong work experience. Our MBAs usually come in with about 4 to 6 years of work experience. And most of our board fellows are business students, about 50 to 60%. We are housed in Ross, so it's easier to recruit them. We also have public policy, social work, education, and sustainability as some of the more common degree programs as well. So 2 of those students will be matched to your board. And then what does their board service look like? They serve as a typical non-voting member would. They attend meetings, participate in conversations, anything except for voting. And they do sign a commitment agreement, which encourages their confidentiality. Anything, that is a stipulation of your own board membership would be kind of included in that. And then the projects that they work on are anything that is meaningful to your board. And we usually define that in the areas of governance, assessment, innovation, research, or strategy. And we'll dive into some actual examples that you might want to pull from later. And then the board mentor that I mentioned in the last slide, that is someone who's designated to meet with the fellows. We usually recommend once per month, and they support their navigation of the organization and its structure and also the project. So for example, students might need access to some documents. The board mentor would be the person to share that with them. And then, all of that is kind of supported and scaffolded with that community building and all of our events where we all come together. And one of those first events here in the both category of our support and training is our orientation. So at the beginning of the year, we have a comprehensive orientation where everyone comes together in person. The mentors and fellows finalize the details of their project plan, and they're able to also receive some onboarding support from our team. Everyone is also invited to our workshop series that is mostly facilitated by NEW, our nonprofit enterprise at work here in Ann Arbor, our U of M faculty, and other nonprofit experts that are part of our network. Each year, we also host an annual nonprofit forum. Some of you may have attended ours back in March on diversifying funding streams. That topic is different every year. We bring together a panel of local nonprofit experts on some sort of topic that's on everyone's minds in the sector at that point in the year. We also have supports, of course, from our staff, including myself, and then our faculty here at U of M. And having run this program through U of M since 1999, we have a lot of resources. So past years of completed projects and templates, board source resources. We even have some physical books that you're welcome to borrow. And then specifically for you all as nonprofit partners, we do have designated networking events. We hope to offer more of these next year because we hope to also onboard more nonprofit organizations. So really bringing you together with an event just for you to network and bring you all together. We also offer direct project scoping support. So if you are selected after you apply as one of our nonprofit partners, we would directly scope that project with you that the fellows would be working on. And also mentorship. So since I mentioned that board mentor piece, we are happy to support anything we can when it comes to the relationship between the board mentors and the board fellows. On the board fellows side, they can earn the Michigan Ross Nonprofit Governance Endorsement. So this is something that by attending all of our workshops, writing reflections, and really being very engaged with the program, they can earn it. They get a LinkedIn badge and a graduation cord and all of that fun stuff. They also receive peer support from the Weiss Senior Fellows. These are students who served as board fellows this year and then would come back next year. 2 of them are on this call with us today, actually, and you'll get to hear from them. And they really just allow that community building piece and peer-to-peer support. All right, and with all of those resources and support, we also want to have some expectation setting and just really things that make for the most successful experiences for everyone so we can guarantee that everyone gets the most out of this fellowship. So emphasizing a little bit again that the board mentor engages with the fellow outside of the board meetings. That's about 1 hour a month on the part of that board mentor. And then they also, as a board, are identifying a meaningful board level project that would probably also be meaningful to a student, but of course, anything that is helpful to your organization. And then the board should provide a formal introduction or onboarding to the board. Many boards already have a onboarding process that is formal. You can take the student through that same onboarding process. If you don't have that, that might be a great project for a student to work on, is developing an onboarding process. And then on the student side, they are expected to engage in all non-voting board activities. So that means attending all board meetings, unless of course they have class, which is something that we do work around through the application process. And then potentially a committee meeting if their project aligns with a certain committee. They of course are going to complete those project deliverables that are predetermined, and then maintain communication. That is essential to this program. Overall, the students are committing about 10 hours a month. Now, breaking that down, that works out to about 5 hours a month directly on that project, and 5 hours a month to board meetings, the workshops that we provide for them, and other work related to the fellowship. Overall, everyone just can update the staff, engage in the workshops. Again, you all as board members or staff are invited to join us for these workshops as well. Now diving into some of the eligibility. As you take a look at these are somewhat flexible. So if you see one of these and are like, oh, that doesn't match our board, reach out to me. It may not exclude you from the program, but I will say that over 26 years of this program, we have found that these correlate with success for the board, for the fellows, and everyone. So a lot of these here are kind of indicating you should be in good standing with the IRS, that you hold enough board meetings for the students to attend over the course of the fellowship. That's a huge part of this opportunity. And then having an operating history under your belt is great, having kind of already gotten going, and having active board members who are going to engage with the students. And then I will say also, we usually work with organizations that are located within about an hour's drive or bus ride from Ann Arbor. We also will work with organizations that have virtual meetings or a local mentor, but they're a national organization. We worked with Dwelling Place of Grand Rapids this past year, and we happened to find an online student who worked in Grand Rapids. So that worked out well. So again, if these don't exactly match you, just reach out to me, and it may not exclude you from participating. And if everyone could just make sure that they're muted so we can hear, that would be great. Moving on to our nonprofit partners from this year, I will send out these slides so that you can read them more closely, but this is just a good sampling of who is participating in our program, and you can read through this at your own pace. Overall, we've had, again, 26 years of history. We've placed over 800 fellows with 300 boards in our community. And last year we had 60 fellows at 37 nonprofits with doing 47 projects, which was an increase, and we hope to increase that again this coming year. Our average fellow on their post survey of their experience says that they're very likely to join a board in the future. So that gives us a lot of hope for the sector and bringing in the next generation of board members. Now, this is a great model to visualize the relationships and roles of the program. It might be a little bit of reiterating what I've covered, but because this program has a unique structure, it's not an internship program, it is a fellowship with all of these three moving parts here. So this is something great to maybe show your board members who weren't able to attend today on how the flow of the program kind of works, and you're welcome to look back on this as well. Now, moving into our timeline and what this actually all shakes out to be. We are, of course, in an info session right now. There are 2 more next week as well. This is a great time to start discussing with your board what participating in this program might look like for you, what projects you might want to introduce, and if it's the right fit for you. And the application will be due July 13th. So, making sure that you have a board meeting in between then, or that you're at least discussing it with your board. And then when you apply, you'll have an initial meeting with staff to see if the program is a good fit. We do have some alternatives if it's not the right time. But overall, if you are accepted as a nonprofit partner, then we would move into scoping the project with you and preparing for the students to return in the fall. And when they do return, we have them attend information sessions very similar to this one. But for the students' information, then they would apply to the program, interview with us, have a chance to also talk with you, and then they'd be matched to the program. So how that kind of breaks down is that students, when applying, rank their top 5 choices of nonprofits, and they can see the projects that they would be working on. So we ask them to identify what skills they could bring to that project and why they are really passionate about your mission. We actually are usually able to match their number 1 or number 2 choice. This is important for you all too, right? Because it ensures that you have an enthusiastic student who is passionate about your mission and can bring something to that project. It's also a pretty selective application for the students. So there's a 41% acceptance rate last year. So you're getting a really good, solid applicant pool there. You will also have the final say of whether or not those students are matched to your board. So you'll receive their resume of our recommendations and get a chance to talk to them. I will say we very, very rarely have had boards say no to their match. And then that's when we move into the orientation. It is on October 3rd this year. We have it all, already planned there. It's a huge event. We had, I think, 150 folks there last year. So the fellowship term then begins. So right after orientation, students can start attending board meetings. They'll begin their board service overall and the project, and they can start engaging in the workshops, as can you. And those workshops, we also say part of that is your expertise. So of course, those are not required for our nonprofit partners, but we do encourage you to attend because the students learn a lot from your lived experiences. And it's just a great way to bring our community together. Then at the end of April or early May, the students kind of off board. Some of them are graduating, some of them are not, but that is when our academic year ends. And a lot of those students do choose to stay in touch with you. I've been talking to a lot of our fellows from this year who have graduated, and they've told me, oh, I'm going to stay in touch with my board and continue to, donate or pop into volunteering events or fundraisers. So it's really great to see the continued engagement. Now hopping into, as you start thinking about applying and the timeline and all of that, these are some examples of project ideas. These are also listed on the application with a little summary of what that might look like. Overall, I would encourage you to think of it as something that a board member or a committee might do, but you maybe haven't had the time or capacity to actually execute. So I think of it as like a wish list project, right? You'll need 1 to 3 of these ideas for your application. We'll have no more than 2 projects that actually end up being marketed to the students, but it's good to have maybe 1 alternative option if you are having a hard time deciding. And then we would, of course, if your board is selected, support the scoping process throughout the summer. Again, emphasizing that the students spend about 5 hours a month on that project. That's over the course of 7 months. So it's about a 35-hour project, which is a lot if you're thinking about it in a very, specific thing like benchmarking research, right? Or a fund development landscape analysis or something like that. And then they're also able to spend that time with the board and really understanding your organization. So those are some of those project ideas, and you might want to also consider that the majority of our students, again, are studying business, public policy, social work, things like that. So that's another good thing to keep in mind is where could we kind of plug in those types of skills into our board. And to talk about her project, we actually have Jasmine Lopez here, one of our students from this past year. She was a board fellow with Playworks Michigan and is now returning next year as a Weiss Senior Fellow. So I'm actually going to hand the floor over to Jasmine to go ahead and talk a little bit about her experience.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for making the time to join during your lunch. My name is Jasmine Lopez, and I am now a second-year MBA student at Michigan Ross. I was with Playworks Michigan this past year. And basically, for those who may not know Playworks, it's a national organization with a chapter that serves Michigan and Ohio, and it's dedicated, or it's primarily focused in education. And so I knew that I wanted an education-based project when I came into the nonprofit board fellowship. And so there were so many different options, so many great nonprofits. All of you do fantastic work, but I knew that when I was ranking them, I really wanted to give back in the education space. And so I was lucky enough to get my first choice. And so I worked on a project with Playworks that had to do with marketing and fundraising innovation. And what that means is that basically Playworks pretty much gets a lot of their donors from corporate and foundations. And so we were thinking about what it would look like to start thinking of a strategy for individual giving. And so I worked with Playworks for all of last year, trying to figure out how to best touch individual donors. And so we ended up coming up with a really great strategy that we now are going to implement this year. So it was a good way to get some exposure into what it looks like to just think from, from nothing to getting a whole strategy in place, and bringing some of the skills that I've gained at Michigan Ross to kind of bring that to life. And also, I think the most important part outside of the project for me was really building the relationships with my board mentor, as well as the people on my board who have just such varying experiences, are from all over Michigan. And for someone who is not from Michigan, I'm from New Jersey, it was just great to build connections outside of the University of Michigan ecosystem. So that's a little bit about what I did. I'm happy to answer any questions after this, after we're done here, or via email as well. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. It's so wonderful to hear. And this picture is so wonderful as well. And now I'm going to actually pass it over to one more student, David Denton, who is going to talk a little bit about his experience with Brilliant Detroit, also now becoming Brilliant Cities.
Thank you, Annalise. Hey, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is David Denton. My background is in public health, but I'm also pursuing an MBA at UMich. So my board experiences was pretty unique because the organization I was working with started locally, hence the name Brilliant Detroit, and they operated for over a decade, scaling within the city. And what they did was essentially create these family-focused community hubs that hosted different programs and resources to improve literacy, health outcomes, and family support. So when I started the fellowship last fall, they began the process of actually launching a national organization called Brilliant Cities, where cities across the nation and in the future, cities across the world will be able to partner with them in different capacities. So I was able to sit on two boards, one really to understand the operations and marketing at the local level, and then a newly formed national board working to scale those efforts across different cities. So it felt like witnessing a new organization entirely, but then one that was built on the foundation of an existing one. And my project was working with Brilliant Cities, specifically thinking critically about different evidence-based replication approaches that could be used, as well as developing a roadmap for potential partners to understand how each of these approaches might best fit them. So we ended up conducting different benchmarking interviews with industry leaders and created readiness assessments to really try to evaluate the organization's alignment and capacity. I think what made it even more unique, to Annalise's point about being able to have direct interactions with the mentor who was the ED at this point. We also was a part of a committee that was pretty much our choice to sit on, and we also did site visits where we were welcomed and could see the impact in real time. And I see Caitlin Bush is on, and Caitlin was an amazing, not just mentor, but point of contact to help guide us as we were going to see the different locations within Detroit. So overall, I think the project was really intentional, and something that wasn't just put together, but really thought thoroughly about, and allowed myself and my co-partner to be able to execute different projects that kind of align, but had its uniqueness as well. So I'm also happy to answer any questions as well.
Great. Thank you so much, David. And it looks like folks are looking for your LinkedIn's in the comments. So if you want to share those. And thank you for bringing up the fact that there are returning organization representatives here today. So when we jump into the Q&A, if any of our returning folks want to chime in, that's totally okay as well. All right, well, thanks for sharing. And we're going to now dive more specifically into the actual application details. So like I mentioned, the deadline is July 13th. We do accept these on a rolling basis, and I will directly send you the application link right after this. So you can apply at any time that you have everything ready. And I actually took a look at the application data from last year, and the average time to complete was about 15 to 20 minutes for those who had their project ideas kind of vaguely decided ahead of time with their board, who who had discussed it with their board. So with a little bit of preparation, it actually shouldn't take too long to complete the application. The application questions are linked in the QR code, and the link to the application is there as well. The reason I kind of typed out those questions for you is because when you go to the application, it will only have one page asking you whether or not you participated last year, and then it'll take you into the questions. So I wanted you to be able to see what you'll be asked ahead of time. And that'll include some basic organization information, the names of your proposed board mentors, and a staff contact. So the staff contact is someone who has expertise on your staff related to the project. So maybe they could help the student gain access to data that is needed or provide that staff perspective on the project. A lot of times this might also be the executive director. You'll also be asked about your board meeting information and those project ideas. And so the reason we're asking whether or not you participated last year is returning organizations who are on this call, you will actually have less questions to answer this year because we have your data from last year. So even less time for you all. And then the action steps here are really to start discussing this with your board. It's great to have your chief executive director looped in on this as well. I will send out the recording, and there's also an info sheet linked here on the QR code. Those are great resources to share with any board members who couldn't attend today. You'll want to develop those 1 to 3 project concepts. And then we ask that you vote to participate in the program at some point before you would start if you're selected. So you can do that now if you have an upcoming board meeting, or you can come to an informal consensus. Let's say you don't have a board meeting coming up and your bylaws don't allow for email voting or virtual voting. You could also just let me know that you came to an informal consensus as long as we have that vote by the end of the summer. You want to select who those board mentors would be. And we do ask about your board meeting schedule. So if you're not an organization that already has a rolling board meeting schedule, like we meet on the second Tuesday of every other month, you want to get those scheduled because that's how when we match students in the fall, we ensure that they can actually attend your board meetings. And then again, July 13th is the big day to submit, and you're also welcome to email us with any questions. Now, if you've so kindly sat through this session and you're thinking, maybe this isn't the right time for us, or yes, we would love that board support, but we also would like more engagement at the staff level as well. These are some great staff level or day-to-day work programs. Again, since the board fellowship is not an internship program and it's more focused on the board, it is geared towards that board level project. But these are other amazing opportunities at the University of Michigan, and there is an info sheet linked here. And again, I'll share the slides as well. So with all of that being said, I am going to stop the